Dan Proft on AM 560. The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. Articles of impeachment have been filed against Field Marshal Tim, the governor for now of Minnesota. 4 articles: knowingly concealing widespread fraud despite repeated warnings and audits. There is allegedly evidence that whistleblowers notified the governor's office, and there was willful blindness, knowing blindness. Article 1 of the impeachment articles: knowingly concealing widespread fraud despite repeated warnings and audits. Interfering with lawful oversight of investigators into state agency fraud, which is in part what was alleged by those nearly 200 state workers who signed the open letter to Walz back before the first of the year, basically contending that that's exactly what the governor's office did, that there were whistleblowers who were sidelined or intimidated into silence, that people saw some of what was going on, tried to level it up, and they were turned away. Article 3, prioritizing political narratives over disclosing known program failures. And Article 4, failing to faithfully execute laws protecting public funds, allowing safeguards to be ignored or weakened. Trying to get a handle on the scope of all this, not just in Minneapolis, formerly known as Minneapolis. Now I think it's more accepted to say Mogadishu, Minnesota, the entire state of Minnesota, but the entire country. Just Minnesota, to give you a sense of this. This is sort of new information bubbling to the surface with each passing day. TSA data reveal nearly $700 million in declared U.S. cash flagged in luggage by Somali couriers departing Minneapolis-St. Paul International Airport. Speaking of willful blindness or active concealment, the Biden White House told TSA to stand down. And we've heard this from TSA whistleblowers, interviewed by Liz Collin up there. She saw this for years, and she estimated it to be in the tens, if not hundreds of millions. But this is TSA. TSA flagged $692 million between 2024 and 2025 in declared U.S. currency detected in passengers' luggage departing from Minneapolis-St. Paul. $1 million a day, roughly, over 2 years. That's John Solomon, the editor-in-chief of Just the News, reporting on that. $700 million just there, going, the suggestions made, among others, getting moved through Abu Dhabi and then maybe back to Somalia, finance preferred warlords or the campaigns of aspiring warlords that are back home running daycare centers. And the scope of this in the larger context, Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, of course, recently sat down with Chris Rufo over at the Manhattan Institute and estimated that about 10% of the federal budget is frauded every year. U.S. Government Accountability Office reported in 2024 the federal government loses between $233 billion and $521 billion annually to fraud. That's based on data between 2018 and 2022. That was a report in 2024. That's probably going to be revised upward, certainly in subsequent years. Between 233 and 521 billion annually to fraud. Just to give some perspective, the state budget of California, our most populous state, of course, $350 billion. And you're talking about upwards of $500 billion is lost annually to fraud and being perhaps distributed to America's enemies, at least in part. It's astounding. And we're just now scratching the surface because, of course, as we've talked about, regimes in California and Illinois and New York, for example, are less than transparent, less than forthcoming, less than even responsive. You shouldn't have to find out where the government is spending money or where the government is being frauded. They should be telling us. But, of course, that's not how it's practiced. or reported in places like New York and California and Illinois and Minnesota and Maine and Massachusetts and Washington State. For more on all this and other topics, pleased to be joined by Scott McKay. He's the publisher of the Hayride, hayride.com, senior editor at the American Spectator, and author of the brand new novel Blockbusters, which is available at Amazon. Scott, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Hey, Dan, thanks for having me, and Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year. Good to talk to you again. And so, what's your take on the staying power of the fraud stories as, the pictures in some places are getting clearer with each passing day while, we're still digging in other places like some of the states I mentioned?
Well, I think that we can fairly say the rage and protesting and general hullabaloo that the left launched after this Renee Good spectacle on Wednesday of last week was a distraction aimed at taking people's eyes off of the Somali fraud. I mean, those numbers, I think, from 2024 are probably low. I think you're probably getting close to $1 trillion by the time you've counted up all the fraud.
Mm-hmm.
And the Somali piece is a small part of that, but it's just it's the most golden piece of it, right? Like here is an entire community full of people that nobody thinks should even be here. 81% of them are attached to the welfare system. And, everybody thinks the Somalis are like the dim bulbs, but yet they've mastered the ability to steal from the system. And, what that says is anybody can steal from the system. Like the system is built to be stolen from. And so that is the one piece of all this that I think brings the whole thing down ultimately when people say, we don't need a system that steals our money as effectively as this one does. Let's have a new system. And I think if Republicans are smart, that's what they run on this year in advance of the midterms because it's a winning issue.
Well, this is why Trump is moving to stop payments to sanctuary states as of Feb 1. He announced yesterday he's ending temporary protected status for Somalis residing in the United States, but that at this point, that only ends up being a little fewer than 2,500 because this has been going on for generations.
The horses are out of the barn at this point.
Yeah, but I mean, but he's taking concrete actions that he can point to that keep this issue front and center, and also communicate that he is doing what is in his power to do.
Right. Yeah, and as he does these things, they will generate unmarriable white women in the streets trying to secure the same fate as Renee Good, which is a separate issue that I think most Americans are getting really tired of. I think as of today, there's more backlash than there is sympathy about, once people have started finding out that the left is organizing and training an army full of, doughy, angry lesbians and fellow travelers to throw their cars in front of ICE officers. Like people are like, that can't possibly be real. And then they find out that it is. And it touches all kinds of feels, none of which in a good way. And I think people are going to get really tired of that really fast.
There's a survey out from Signal. 60% of self-identified liberal white women between the ages of 18 to 44 agree with the statement that it is acceptable to go beyond peaceful protests and break the law in response to ICE enforcement.
Well, and I have two things on that. First of all, male actions inevitably bring male consequences, which is something none of these women know. They should know it instinctively, but they don't. which is, I guess, maybe a sort of a nice commentary on American society and how, safe it is. But then the second thing is they need to go read their Gandhi and they need to go read their Martin Luther King, because nonviolent resistance means when you've irritated the police and they decide to arrest you, you go peacefully. Right? Like that is a principle of nonviolent resistance. You do not resist arrest, because then it becomes violent resistance. So
Right.
when this woman hit the gas trying to leave, like, she's doing it wrong. And I'm pretty sure that these communist radicals who are doing all the training of, the yoga class or the charter school moms, are not operating from the well-worn playbook that we've all kind of come to know and love. This is about a violent revolution, and it's about trying to get the cops to do things that inflame the public against the cops, and it's not working, by the way.
And then there's this aspect of the fraud, since we're in an election year. Macomb County, Michigan. The county clerk in Macomb County, Michigan, put out a press release saying over the past 4 months, 239 illegal aliens were found in his county's jury pool. So not only do we have illegal immigrants in this country in places like suburban Chicago and Hanover Park serving as law enforcement officers until they're found out to be here illegally, although that's still pending. We have the possibility of illegal immigrants sitting on juries and rendering judgment on American citizens. That seems problematic. In addition, if they're in the jury pool, then they're also on the voter rolls, and that's what I was really getting to. Because of a suit, I mean, I know the federal government has sued about a dozen states over cleaning their voter rolls. So is Judicial Watch. Now, Oregon, the Secretary of State there, Tobias Reed, has been compelled by a court to clean his voter rolls, which could result in the cancellation of as many as 800,000 registrations. And in Pasco, Washington, we have this story.
Filling out and submitting ballots from her former tenants.
In Franklin County, an apartment manager with access to ballots from former tenants allegedly abusing the system. This confirmed by Detective Andrew Gardner in his investigation.
I was able to identify several other ballots that look to have characteristics on the signature line that were not consistent with the signatures on file.
Investigators say 4 ballots were illegally submitted, with 3 being counted in the 2024 general election. The outlier was rejected because of a mismatched signature.
This case is still open, and we are still collecting information from community members that may have been affected by this.
According to the sheriff's office, the woman admitted to voting all 4 ballots and forging the signatures. She was booked into Franklin County Jail for 12 felony charges related to...
And not for nothing, Scott, but her name is Esperanza Contreras.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm sorry about Esperanza's legal troubles.
And the larger
Even though
point
they're,
about
they're self-generated.
yes, and admitted, but confessed to, but Franklin County, Washington, the situation in Oregon, the DOJ suits against states, including Illinois, not properly maintaining the integrity of their voter rolls. The story about the jury pool in Macomb County, Michigan. I mean, you want to talk about another aspect of the fraud that is systemic with the open borders consequences.
Well, and we've got a Spectacle podcast segment that went up this morning talking about that Oregon lawsuit that Judicial Watch filed. I mean, you're talking about 20% of the voter registrations in Oregon are like dead people and folks who've moved away, because they haven't cleaned the voter rolls since 2017. And, so you'll know, dirty voter rolls is how all of this happens. Okay, when you have excess lines on the voter file that you can vote, is particularly in a state where they do a lot of mail-in balloting, like that's where it is, because what you don't get is somebody showing up on election day to vote, and then they've already voted. right? Like when you know that somebody is dead or that they've moved away and you can vote that line, you're not going to get caught. And so all of these states that do mail-in balloting and then keep dirty voter rolls, it's been probably a decade or two since they've had an election that you can certifiably say was honest. And all of these states, Oregon, people think, oh, Oregon's as blue as they come. Democrats win Oregon like 53-47 every year in a federal like that. They're definitely within the margin of fraud in Oregon, and that's why like 2/3 of that state geographically wants to join Idaho because they've had enough. They steal this thing in Portland like every cycle, and the people in places like Bend and Corvallis and whatever, like, we're done. We've had enough of this. Like, we're being denied our democracy here. And the Democrats have been doing this for a very long time. They've gotten really good at it, and nobody has stopped them. Maybe now we'll finally have some movement on that.
Scott McKay is the publisher of The Hayride, thehayride.com, senior editor at The American Spectator, and author of the brand new novel Blockbusters, which is available at Amazon. Scott, thank you as always. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Dan. See you soon.
Good to have you back. Dan Proft, Chicago's Morning Answer.
There's only one radio show in Chicago talking about today's biggest stories and telling you what they really mean. That show is this one, Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560, The Answer.
The following is a paid political announcement.
Stay tuned for a special message from Angel Dad Joe Abraham about his daughter Katie.
Put yourself in my shoes. I just spent my first Christmas without Katie.